Once the last visitor has gone and the heavy oak doors are locked, a profound silence settles over the galleries. Moonlight streams through the high arched windows, casting long, dancing shadows across the polished marble floors. It paints the masterpieces on the walls in shades of silver and gray, giving them a ghostly, ethereal quality. In this hushed sanctuary, the air is thick with the scent of old canvas, oil paint, and centuries of history, all held in suspended animation. The gilded frames seem to hold their breath, guarding the vibrant worlds trapped within them. Each portrait, landscape, and still life is a frozen moment, a story waiting in the wings. But, on this particular night, the silence wasn't just peaceful, it was charged, humming with a strange, expectant energy, as if the very air was waiting for a curtain to rise. It began without a sound, a subtle shift in the atmosphere. A single beam of light, no brighter than a firefly, materialized in the center of the main hall. It wasn't moonlight or an alarm sensor, it was something else entirely, something otherworldly. It pulsed with a soft, pearlescent glow, then began to move. Slowly at first, then with growing confidence, it swept across the room like a phantom searchlight. It glided over a stoic general's portrait, and for a fleeting second, his painted eyes seemed to track its movement. It danced across a vase of sunflowers, and their petals appeared to tremble as if stirred by a gentle breeze. The light washed over a depiction of a stormy sea, and the waves on the canvas seemed to swell and crest with a silent, impossible power. It touched a Renaissance lady's cheek, and a faint blush bloomed on her porcelain skin. With every painting it passed, a ripple of life followed in its wake, a quiet and miraculous awakening that shattered the stillness of the night. Then, the true magic began. From a painting of a Venetian carnival, a gloved hand, delicate and hesitant, reached out past the confines of its ornate golden frame. It pressed against the cool, hard wall, then recoiled slightly, as if surprised by the solid world. A moment later, a figure in a domino mask, her silk gown rustling with a sound no one was there to hear, cautiously stepped out of the canvas and onto the gallery floor. Her painted slippers made no sound on the marble. Elsewhere, a young shepherd boy from a pastoral landscape lowered himself from his frame, his bare feet touching the ground for the first time. He looked round, his eyes wide with a mixture of fear and absolute wonder. One by one, from every corner of the museum, the subjects of the artworks emerged. A stoic knight, his armor clinking softly, a group of dancers from a Parisian salon, a Dutch merchant with a quizzical look on his face. They moved with a tentative grace, their painted forms now solid and real. They gathered in the center of the hall, a silent, bewildered assembly of figures from across time, all blinking in the shared moonlight, their long-held stillness finally broken. Their initial caution soon gave way to a burgeoning curiosity. The shepherd boy ran his hand over the velvet rope of a stanchion, marveling at its texture. The carnival lady peered into a glass display case, her reflection looking back at her, a twin from another world. They began to explore. The knight discovered a water fountain and stared in amazement as clear, cool water flowed at the touch of a button. A group of peasants from a Bruegel painting discovered the gift shop, their eyes wide at the colorful trinkets and glossy postcards that bore their own images. There was no leader, no spoken plan, just a collective, unspoken understanding. They had been given a chance at life beyond the canvas, and they wouldn't waste it. Their journey led them to the massive front doors of the museum, the final barrier between their old, static world and the vast, unknown one outside. The doors were locked, formidable and impassive. For a moment, they seemed defeated. The heavy bolts and modern locks were a puzzle beyond their understanding. But they were a collection of history's greatest minds, heroes, and innovators, even if only in paint. The Dutch merchant, a man of commerce and ingenuity, examined the lock mechanism closely. The knight, a figure of strength, tested the door's weight. But it was a mischievous jester from a royal court portrait who had the answer. He'd been watching the security guards on their rounds for centuries. He mimicked their movements, retrieving a key from a hook he'd seen them use behind a nearby desk. It was an old skeleton key, forgotten but not discarded. With the help of a clever artisan from a guild portrait, they figured out the lock. The knight put his shoulder to the door, and with a collective push from a dozen figures, the heavy oak door swung open with a deep, groaning sound. A rush of cool night air filled the hall, carrying the sounds of a distant siren and the scent of rain on asphalt. They hesitated on the threshold, a silent tableau of past and present, before stepping out, one by one, into the dazzling, bewildering lights of the modern city. The world outside was an overwhelming symphony of new sensations. Cars, like horseless carriages of gleaming metal and light, rushed past with a roar they'd never imagined. Towering buildings of glass and steel pierced the night sky, their windows like a million stars. The paintings, accustomed to the quiet dignity of the museum, wandered through the city streets in a state of collective awe. The carnival lady marveled at the vibrant, neon signs of a theater, a brighter spectacle than any Venice festival. The shepherd boy stood transfixed before a shop window filled with televisions, each screen a tiny, flickering painting of a world he didn't recognize. They saw people rushing by, their faces illuminated by the glow of small rectangles held in their hands. The sounds, the smells, the sheer speed of it all was both exhilarating and terrifying. They moved as a group, a strange and wonderful procession through the concrete canyons, their historical attire a stark contrast to the modern world around them. They were ghosts of the past walking through the future, invisible to the late-night city dwellers lost in their own worlds. As the first hints of dawn began to lighten the eastern sky, they knew they couldn't stay. The city, for all its wonders, was not their home. It was too loud, too fast, too bright. They were relics, beautiful but out of place. Led by an instinct they didn't understand, they were drawn away from the city center, towards a place where the concrete gave way to green. They found themselves at the entrance to an old, overgrown park, one that was forgotten on city maps. As they stepped through its wrought iron gates, the air changed. It grew softer, filled with the scent of damp earth and night-blooming jasmine. The path in sight was lined with ancient, weeping willows, their branches creating a protective canopy. In the heart of the park, they discovered a hidden clearing. A spring-fed pool shimmered under the emerging light, its surface as smooth as glass. The trees here seemed to hum with the same magical energy that had freed them. It was a pocket of the world untouched by time, a sanctuary. Here, they could be more than just paint on canvas. They could be real. The knight laid his helmet on the soft moss. The dancers began a slow, graceful waltz by the water's edge, and the shepherd boy watched the sunrise, not from a gilded frame, but with his own eyes. They had found their new home, a hidden, magical place where their stories could finally continue. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more magical tales. See you next time.